Washington Heights, Manhattan is an extremely historic neighborhood whose origins go as far back as the 19th century. Before it was enveloped by the city in the early 20th century, it was home to a number of mansions spread shore to shore. In the present day, one can find many of these colonial-era gems scattered amongst the urban fabric. The New York Public Library, constructed in the neighborhood, more widely known as Washington Heights Library, is on West 160th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. It was constructed in 1868 and underwent an interior renovation in 2014, but the historic facade remains untouched.
Thanks to the evolution of transportations, visitors today can access the library through many modes of public services. When looking at all of the potential access paths combined, there is a density that develops on the 163rd Street. Subway stations are the first modes of access. They have been in service since the mid to early 1900s. The 163rd Street subway station, which is the closest, was opened in 1930. The remaining subway stations are the One Train, which allows for local and express access to the Mid and Upper West Side of Manhattan. Visitors would likely take these paths from the subway station exits to the library. The buses are also a great way of accessing the library, with many stations located throughout its surrounding. Expect middle schoolers to take the M2 or the M100 bus down to the library after 3 p.m. Perhaps even elderly local citizens would take these buses down to the library in the morning. Lastly, a more modern addition to access the library is the City Bike. There are 3 in its immediate area, which allows for one to quickly and easily get to the library. Local families might find it relaxing to take their children to the library by bike on a sunny day. The City Bike also allows for visitors to ride around its surrounding environment and experience its unique landmarks.
The Morris Jumel Mansion was built in 1765 by Roger Morris, a British military officer. The house was used by both sides of the Revolutionary War, with George Washington posting in the house for an extended amount of time. The house was later bought by the Jumel family in 1810 and later turned into a museum in 1903. As we found out the hard way, there is an entrance to the property of the Morris Jumel Mansion on the eastern side facing the site, which leads seamlessly into the Sylvan Terrace. Sylvan Terrace consists of 20 three-story townhouses built in the 1880s. The street leads directly to the Morris Jumel Mansion.
The Sylvan Terrace leads directly out onto St. Nicholas Avenue, from which point pedestrians can walk straight to the front entrance of the library. Another popular pedestrian pathway to the front entrance of the site is along the western facade on West 160th Street, leading away from the Harlem River and the Morris Jumel Mansion.
And now a quick montage of the construction of the library.
The Washington Heights Library and its neighboring buildings are composed, for the most part, of brick, limestone, glass, metal, concrete, and wood. Each material serves a different function in the grand structural scheme. Brick, the material of choice for the Washington Heights Library, is perhaps one of the most cost-effective options that creates a heavy yet colorful facade with adequate strength and security. Limestone is used to provide a lighter contrast to the mostly brick buildings that exist in the area. It is used sparingly and only on the horizontal axis to ornamentally break up what is otherwise an all-red brick facade. Glass is used throughout the library for windows, the elevator, as well as temporary partitions due to COVID. While it's not practical to use an extensive amount, it's necessary for sunlight and to allow environment into the building. Metal is a more expensive but proportionally strong option that is used sparingly in the shorter and more structurally sound buildings in the Washington Heights area. Here it's used for details and unseen structure. Concrete is a mostly structural element in the local Washington Heights buildings, serving as floor slabs for the library. It does not appear in the facade of the site except for the sidewalk. While wood is used for the flooring within the building, as well as things such as doors, it's very prominent in surrounding facades like the Sylvan Terrace houses, which have a very strong presence on the block.
The Washington Heights Public Library gets sufficient sunlight throughout the day due to its southern-facing windows. The neighboring buildings aren't much taller than the library, so they don't cast big shadows and they don't block the sun. The library takes advantage of spatial programming by placing seating close to the large windows, which allow for light to reach far into the interior. The vernal, or spring equinox, falls on March 21st. Here we can see that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The majority of the sun hits the southern facade of the building. The north side stays in the shadow. Today the sun rises at 6:58 a.m. and sets at 7:09 p.m. The summer solstice falls on June 21st. Today the sun rises at 5:25 a.m. and sets at 8:31 p.m. The autumn equinox falls on September 22nd. Today the sun rises at 6:43 a.m. and sets at 6:53 p.m. The winter solstice falls on December 21st. Today the sun rises at 7:16 a.m. and sets at 4:32 p.m.
The basement of the library, accessible via a staircase to the left of the entrance, but only open to the public under restrictive circumstances, features a STEM classroom with many machines usable by faculty and students, along with a seating area. The first floor of the library, which is accessible through either a one-story elevator or a half-floor height staircase, features a front desk, computer lab, and seating. It is intended for use by adults, young and old, and consequently, its book selection is more mature than its successive floors. It is also connected to the other floors via the egress at the back of the building.
The facility's second floor is accessible via either the egress at the back of the building, the main stairs towards the front, or the main elevator. It is geared towards children and babies, who are able to circulate freely about the floor, but are unable to quickly exit the building without parental supervision due to its placement in the structure.
The third floor can be accessed by all the same methods as the second. However, it features a level change at the landing of the main staircase, which is resolved by a two-part ramp, creating 3 different elevations on the floor. Its program is intended for young adults and teens to hang out, read, or do homework. Its position on the third floor, above a double-height space, makes it perhaps the most private space in the building, where teenagers can be isolated from their parents and younger siblings alike. The Washington Heights Library receives most of its foot traffic during the day from noon to 6 p.m. Senior citizens will tend to occupy the building in the earlier hours until mid-afternoon, while teenagers will frequent the building from mid-afternoon, usually when school ends, to closing. Young toddlers and babies tend to show up on weekends, when their parents are available to bring them, or when public events are being hosted.